This is the Aftermarket Radio Network.
Welcome, everyone, to yet another episode of Diagnosing the Aftermarket A to Z. I'm Matt Fonzel, and I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the Tannhauser Gate. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in the rain. Time to die. That and more after a word from our sponsor, NAPA Autotech Training. Let NAPA Autotech's Build-A-Tech program, like Build-A-Bear, help you turn your general technician into a moneymaker for your shop. Make them a profitable member of your team. Go to napaautotech.com for more details. Is that maybe like the best line or monologue in the history of cinema? I mean, seriously, hopefully you know what that's from, and if you don't, it's too good not to tell you. As Blade Runner. And if you don't know the story of that line, I love this stuff. I can't get enough of this stuff. That they're shooting this scene, it's not working. The script, what he's supposed to say is just, it's not working. Rutger Hauer goes back to his trailer and pens this. And it's just, I don't know, might be perfect. So I don't know. I love stuff like that. I love hearing about behind the scenes type things on so many different subjects. I guess mainly entertainment, but also, I guess, people's shops, people's success. When you get that real, honest, no BS assessment of what leads to one's success. And it's, I don't know if you've seen those. It's kind of, you can't call them memes so much, can you? I don't think they're technically memes, but it'll show like an iceberg and there's what you see and it'll be like success, money, cars, houses, but you don't see what's below the surface, and it'll be like hard work, talent, skill, drive, stuff like that. And for the most part, that's going to be true. It just seems to miss luck, which I've talked about in an episode as the contribution, the significant, uncomfortably significant role luck plays in success. People don't like to hear it, but the data is overwhelming. And then just the efforts of so many, whether they're directly related in the business or in the immediate one, individual success, or just the little stuff that led up to it, helping you or them, whoever the subject is, be in the position to succeed or be in the position to make the move or decision or, leap to something that ends up being successful. And it just doesn't get old. I think it's just how genuine that is, and giving credit where credit's due, which another episode I did, right? It's just something I'm passionate about. But to get going here, thought I'd go back into the mailbag. I got a lot of just kind of random questions, both kind of automotive related and some not so much automotive related. I figured I'd just answer them. Doesn't really, why not? One, we'll just get right out of the gate. Matt, do you believe in ghosts? No, I don't believe in ghosts. And the reason I find that an interesting question is, my youngest kid's going on 11, and then my stepdaughter's 13. So they want to watch scarier movies. We've watched the Insidious films, Conjurings, and the kids are kind of like, freaked out a little bit. And then they're just kind of, why aren't you scared? And I'm like, one, it's a movie. It's not real. We didn't watch a documentary. Two, if something like that happened, I think I would be excited. And not because I think I could record it and make money, but I don't know. It just seems like I would have a little bit of comfort. Like, holy crap, that could be a ghost. Yeah, I don't know. Not something that I find fearful. And man, ended up having something like stuff moving and all that. Geez, I think that would be reassuring almost. They think I'm nuts. I think they're nuts. Works out pretty well. Another question, a lot more related to our day-to-days. Fuse testing. What is my preferred means of fuse testing? The reality is, I don't think you can just do one way. If we're just checking fuses, it will involve a test light, preferably one that has an incandescent bulb in it. I think popularly there is I think they're like $1 or $3, something like that from Harbor Freight, but it's got a real bulb in it, something that draws a little bit of current. And honestly, the little bit of current I think is like 250 to, I don't know if they'll even draw 400 milliamps. I think it's like 200, 250 milliamps, but it's a little something. And that is enough, at least where I live. Maybe if you're located where corrosion just isn't much of a thing, then the test light is enough. Checking the circuit active with a test lamp, both sides of the fuse, making sure it lights up similarly. Or honestly, I think Lyle has a test light that's an incandescent bulb, and then it also has a meter function. So kind of a voltmeter. That might be better yet. And not maybe, that is better yet. Now you're load testing and looking at voltage. And where I live, assuming we're not talking about parasitic drain fuse testing, that we're testing circuits, yeah, we have to check the fuse that it's got voltage, if you will, or current flow to it and through it. We also have to pull that bad boy out and check the legs. So one way to mess up a experienced diagnostician who does a lot of fuse testing with test lights, or I guess even meters, but really a test light, is just cut one of the legs on the fuse off. Now that isn't necessarily real world that they'll be cut off, but it is real world that they will corrode off. So now you've tested the fuse seemingly dynamically, but you end up getting burned because that leg's corroded away. It never made it. Or inside the fuse itself. I think Tanner Brandt made a reference to this once when we were talking about flashlight diagnostics, using how important a flashlight is. Talked about checking fuses specifically on Fords, I believe, Ford pickups. Shining a light in there is a good way. I think it's just, you have to make sure that where the little test points are on top of the fuse, like that could be good all the way there. And this would be extremely rare, but one little extra step kind of prevents that. And that would be to pop the fuse out and now look at it too with a flashlight, legs there, tension, where it sits in the, whatever you want to call it, the cradle or the terminals, the female terminals. And then in the fuse itself, is it corroded? Minnesota, the Rust Belt area, Wisconsin, it's an issue. Michigan, I think in New York State, the corrosion can work its way up into the fuse, and the fuse could test good with your test light, but ends up not being good because the corrosion occurred after the test points. That makes sense. So really just kind of a CYA. Next question, kind of a management one. Thoughts on loss leaders. I was recently on podcast with Mike Allen and Brian Pollock. The name of it is Confessions of a Shop Owner. I think Mike, his shops, doesn't quote unquote charge for diagnostics. So I guess you're wondering, where am I going with loss leaders? Well, I mean, that could be considered a loss leader, not really charging for it. So theoretically, you could be losing money on that service. And what you're doing, the strategy is you're buying an opportunity to back up a little bit. When we talk about loss leaders, I think generally it's considered, or we think of loss leaders in the realm of oil changes, maybe alignments, free alignment checks, stuff like that. The shop is investing, and maybe even the technicians, depending on the situation, the business is making an investment in the form of a loss for the opportunity to inspect the vehicle. And then hopefully they're looking to sell services. We've checked your alignment, it's off. We found these bad suspension parts. Here's the price for the alignment, or the alignment's free, but you need these components. Oil change, bring it in, change the oil at below cost, most likely. The opportunity to look over the vehicle is with a courtesy inspection. You might have to be careful about calling them safety inspections due to liability concerns. I'm not saying for sure you do have to. It's just worth researching to make sure you're not setting yourself up just because of wording. So I think most businesses, you're really supposed to kind of have an attorney on retainer, and that would be a good time to ask, find out, call the Attorney General office, find out are you setting yourself up if you call this a safety inspection? You might have to just change the wording to courtesy inspection. NAPA Autotech training sessions are being conducted day and night in a town near you. This training caters to every level within your organization, be it a mechanical assistant, a mechanical specialist, a technology specialist, or a driver safety calibration specialist. Imagine a one-stop shop training partner in NAPA Autotech that will lead your team to a path to greatness. Autotech's entry-level Build-A-Tech classes convert the untapped potential of your new hires into money-making mechanical specialists. Autotech's higher-level tech update classes introduce specialists to the world of ever-changing technologies, which prevents your shop from getting technologically stagnant. Remember, if you're not moving forward, you're falling behind. And, turning to the front of the store, the Autotech Service Advisor class is an awesome way to hone your client advocate skill set, ultimately benefiting the customer through an improved vehicle repair experience. But it doesn't stop there. Imagine an electric vehicle class that takes your specialist well past the mundane, yet necessary safety topics. Well, it's here. Autotech's EV Ready training is a week-long curriculum that takes participants through a hands-on experience involving hybrids and electric vehicles. The session kicks off with the use of PPE and proper tooling while touching on required OSHA regulations. Then, the students dive into the lab vehicles to gain knowledge of the common high-voltage components on EV and hybrid vehicles and their function. Attendees will be taken on a path exposing them to different electric vehicle manufacturers to compare component form and location. Additionally, information about Level 1 and Level 2 charging systems will be included, along with a quick look at DC to DC charging. The operation and maintenance of subsystems are explored, including the different modes of Tesla operations, and so much more. So what are you waiting for? Commit to taking your business to the next level with NAPA Autotech training. Again, the loss leader is that opportunity to get vehicles in, preferably in droves, so that there's an opportunity to sell needed work. And I guess what I like to not just say, I don't want it to be misleading. It is not misleading. It's 100% true that evidence-based. I don't know if we use those words nearly enough day to day to our clients as an industry. Evidence-based, making evidence-based suggestions, recommendations. And that evidence could be hygrorefractometer, looking at coolant concentration. It could be pH strips or meters for coolant acidity, checking the voltage of the coolant. I don't mean to hyper focus on coolant, but tread depth, cracks per inch on serpentine belts, oil leaks, you name it, evidence-based. I can show you why I recommend this, that, or the other. That could also include, we'll call it service information, but also manufacturer recommendations, which could be the owner's manual. So that would be evidence-based. The manufacturer of this vehicle recommends that the transmission filter and fluid get changed every 120,000 miles or every 60,000, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. That would be evidence-based. I can show you where I'm getting this information, why this is recommended. Trust, over time, I'm continuously showing you why I recommend what I recommend. From a diagnostic standpoint, here's a waveform. Here is scoping secondary ignition. So maybe just a paddle probe on number 1 coil, and you can see all the hash. This is due to, arcing, internal failure of the coil, spark plugs, something like that. And here's what it should look like. This is off cylinder number 3. And so we recommend doing coil number 1, and looks of it, you have 150,000 miles on this, and I don't think the spark plugs have ever been done. So you follow me? This is evidence-based. So am I against loss leaders? Against is such a strong word. To me, it's just, all that stuff just comes down to equations. And that's what I said on Mike and Brian's podcast, that there's so many different ways. And I don't know who's to say what's right, what's wrong. You have to achieve whatever amount of profit to pay your bills and take care of your people and grow the business, properly equip it and form it and train and all that stuff. The only place that comes from is profit. Who am I to say you shouldn't just sell the parts at cost and run a really high labor rate, or don't charge any labor and just parts are marked up an insane amount, or you don't really give details depending on the state or maybe even county. But however the laws are situated or set up that dictate a little bit of how you show things. Like some states, my knee jerk would be California. They have to itemize everything. There's no choice. That's what you do. Other states, maybe not. Here's the job. You want me to replace the water pump? It's $700. How much is the water pump? And then like Mike Allen said in his podcast, and I don't necessarily disagree, how much do you want it to be? Well, I don't know, $5. Okay, it's $5. And the job's $700. You know what I mean? So right and wrong get really muddled up. If mishandled, it can be unwittingly set a local precedent. Meaning, if enough people go through and your oil changes are $50, don't matter what kind of car, then that's starting to set a price. And it's not similar argument discussion against moonlighting, where techs are working on cars on the side for much, much lower labor rates. You're unwittingly teaching clients that this brake job shouldn't be $700. And it seems like $700 is a really popular cost in my book. $800. That they're doing it for $5. That is unwittingly communicating to the client that all the shops are overcharging. It fails to consider overhead and so many other things, right? That's a concern, that if you're doing that, the loss leader like that it sends a message that we're overcharging for this anyways. So now we can do it for this much, much lower price. Yeah, it just kind of sets the market, if you will, arbitrarily low. It devalues things. There's no way around it. It devalues things. And I'm not saying like that's in a sinister fashion. It's what it is. If you give away things, you start devaluing it, be it services or information, whatnot. It loses its value. I hate to say anything is inherently bad, but it certainly can be. And I don't know that the shop that is doing the loss leaders is obligated to educate the customer at the front desk while they're selling this at such a low price that it's part of a marketing strategy, and that the shop down the street charging $100 is not gouging you. We'd like to see that in general anyways, namely if it's the truth, where we're not throwing each other under the bus. We still do that at a rate that blows my mind how quickly and easily people in general will just, I don't know, slit their own throat. That's what they're doing. I hope that answered that question. Cell phones in the shop. Yeah. I think you got to have them. Some people have run their shop management systems, so that's the tech's easiest, quickest way to have access to them. They got cameras, sometimes better cameras in their phones than some of the tablets, especially with the flash bulb, if you will, capabilities. The other thing is that just service information can be right there. You can be creative in the use with the camera, meaning you can't quite see something, turn the camera on, use it almost like a mirror, of course, the flashlight. So yeah, I guess we have them, and sometimes they're a distraction and sometimes they're not. It benefits everyone to not let them become a distraction in our shop, mainly because everybody gets a little bit of a piece of the profit every month through profit sharing. So it really does not benefit them to let anything become too much of a distraction. It ends up being a poor long-term decision. So yeah, honestly, we don't see a whole lot of it. Usually if they are on their phones, they're looking up service info. They're using their phone as a tool. Have I heard about techs getting sidetracked with the Facebook marketplace? You know, absolutely. And they got to own up to it and figure out why, and why not just wait. And if there's something they just have to have, do they have their alerts set up? And also understand the grand scheme. Shop needs to be profitable. Shop needs production. It just has to happen. And now when they're coming into the office and they want a bump, you're going to be looking at that stuff. How can I do this? This is a distraction for you. This keeps your production level down. And it's not because of anything the shop's doing that may hinder your production abilities. It ends up being a bad long-term choice. They may be upset with the repercussions of that choice, but they also know the solution. So yeah, if it's used as a tool, it's not an if. Cell phone is part of a terrific tool and an early step to us being cyborgs. The interface is bad between us and the phones right now, but it's really one of the more early steps in us slowly become more and more cybernetic. And then eventually we will be transferred consciousness into synthetic bodies and maybe someday making speech like Roy in Blade Runner. So yeah, that's how I will leave you with this. This is a Pre-Vision 2025 recording or episode. I'm really kind of looking forward to it. I got all day Friday class with Scott Shotton, hands-on Pico, where Scott does all the heavy lifting. Been doing that for quite a few years now, and it's a blast every time. It is an utter blast that I feel it just goes over so well because it's really try to get people on the cars with Pico as soon as possible so that they get as much time using the scope, using the accessories, so that come the following week or weeks later, they get a vehicle in that they're now going to use Pico that they feel pretty comfortable. So very excited about that. Got a key class with Andrew Sexton where he does majority of the work, and he probably sensing a theme here. I always have such a great time. It's really easy to co-teach classes with friends, especially when they do all the work. And then Tech Talks this year I'm very excited about because I have Garrett Jacobson is going to talk about HP tuners as a diagnostic tool. And if you remember in my scan tool list, I think HP tuners was an honorable mention because I just think it's a wildly underutilized tool that has, it's not, whatever that means, costly. It's low enough cost that it's not unreasonable for a tech to make the purchase. And as a generic scan tool, it's got a lot of powerful features. And that I'm not talking about tuning. I'm not talking about changing anything with the vehicle. I'm talking strictly as a diagnostic tool, scan tool. Even though it's generic, it has some very, very powerful features. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to learning more about the tool and how it can help me. And then I got Zeb Beard. That guy could talk about whatever. I'll listen to it. I could listen to that guy all day. He's super smart, super down to earth, genuine, right? That's a theme, genuine, and utterly hilarious. So can't wait to hear what he's got. I think it's going to be diesel diagnostics, but I guess I'll let you know what it ends up being about, but looking very much forward to that. If I hopefully see you there, if I don't, I will talk to you next time. But before I blast out of here, take a second here to thank our sponsor, NAPA Autotech Training and the Aftermarket Radio Network. If you weren't aware, just by the name Aftermarket Radio Network, and specifically network, there's more than just one show. And of course, Carm's Remarkable Results Radio, but also Hunt Demarest with his Business by the Numbers is a super engaging podcast that even as a tech, listening to the financials can hammer home some realities. And then you got the weekly blitz with Chris Cotton and the Auto Repair Marketing Podcast with Brian and Kim Walker. So those are marketing aimed, again, even as a tech, just listening to ideas and being able to bring stuff up at meetings or just ask about it. Everybody gets more and more educated. Nothing wrong with that. And then last and least, my good friend Craig O'Neill has a podcast called Speak Up about effective communication. I mean, we're all guys here, right? Most of us, we know all about communication. We got that down. We're kind of like born with it, right? Okay, maybe not. But he is a terrific communicator. And I'm not just saying that as a pun. He is super smart, utterly hilarious. And, his brother's Sean O'Neill. So, I mean, those are some big, big compliments. I would recommend checking them out seriously. Yeah, until next time, take care.
You've been listening to Matt Fonslow, diagnosing the aftermarket A to Z on the Aftermarket Radio Network. Follow Matt on your favorite listening app. He's very interested in what you have to say. Let him know what you'd like him to cover and come on the show. Matt is all for advancing the aftermarket. Find Matt Fonslow on social media and connect or on aftermarketradionetwork.com.